Thank you, Michael. Hello, everybody. I'm Philip Webb, Chief Executive of Investors and Community. About 2 years ago, I was introduced to the concept of what we call the 1,000-year decade. This is the idea that between the years 2020 and 2030, there'll be as much progress, as much change, as much innovation as there has been in the previous 1,000 years. Think about it for a second. The last 1,000 years, 1020, before the Battle of Hastings, and suddenly all that progress we've made up to the date of 2020, and then all of that squeezed into the next 10 years ahead. And I thought, this isn't possible. And it isn't possible for one key reason: people don't change that quickly. And then, of course, we had the pandemic year, and everything changed very, very quickly. We suddenly had the situation of the COVID-19 pandemic. We were all locked down. The people, doesn't matter who you were, whether you were wealthy, whether you were poor, whether you were anything in society, you were on a level playing field with everybody in your communities. And that was a startling realization. This 10-year decade could actually happen. And for me, it became real. And so this 10-year decade, driving change, driving innovation, started to become something we were thinking about. If you take the idea that people need to change behaviors, that's exactly what's happening. People's attitudes, people's behaviors, people's likes, dislikes, the whole psychology of how they're thinking about the world around them has massively changed. And I believe it's changed for the better, and I believe it's changed for good. So what does this mean for you in business? So businesses up until this point have been measured almost exclusively by the fact that they've made a good turnover and carved out a decent profit. They got the tick in the box, the share price went up, and happy days. In the last 5 to 10 years, more people are now concerned about what are you actually doing apart from making the profit. And we've seen great examples in supply chains, for example, where people have said, well, you're operating with child labour overseas to manufacture your product. That's a big cross. We don't like that. We'll not shop with you anymore. And so the trends have become more and more principle-based. Consumers, and particularly the young consumers amongst our society, are now not requesting that the company demonstrate its values. They're demanding. They're demanding it from 2 points. First of all, will they go and work for this business? Yes or no? And there are many, many examples of the millennial generation and the younger people in our society saying, well, I get a higher salary there than there, but actually the second one, the lower salary, is a better company. How do they determine what a better company is? And they measure it by what they perceive as the value that that company takes by supporting its society and its stakeholders and the people that operate within and touch that particular business. So who are they? Well, first of all, there's the shareholders, the investors, the people that put money into the business with the expectation of, yes, a return, but more so now they're looking for something more. They're looking for that social impact to be evident from the point of view of the company. They're looking to make investments in companies that do more than just make a profit. They're looking for impact. They're looking for social integration in the communities, in society around them, because that simply makes it sustainable. What I mean by that? Sustainability is all about repeating the top line, making sure your customers, consumers, the people around you come back and buy from your company. And so if you're espousing the right values, people will naturally gravitate towards you, replicating your top line, creating a sustainable business in the society in which you operate. So that's the shareholders' point of view. The consumers are voting with their feet and indeed with their pounds or dollars or wherever they are in the world. They're making decisions based on what they know your business is doing. Really interesting, a couple of weekends ago, I found a very, very large retail supermarket and they were advertising on television. They didn't mention food at all. Not one juicy carrot, not one steak, no nothing. They talked about their reduction in plastic. They talked about their sustainable food sourcing. They talked about their community support activities. That was it. No mention of food, yet we all know who they are. They're advertising the basis of their values to get you to come to the store to buy from you. It's very common that consumers will literally walk past 3 or 4 of your competitors to get to you if you're espousing the right values, because they like to support a business that does good and is seen to be doing good. So behaviours and attitudes are changing. Employment, consumerism, and stakeholder in terms of investments are all making decisions on what they perceive your business to be doing, not just making profit, but what else are you doing? Who are you? And you need to answer the question of who are you if you're going to remain in business for long. Because coming out of the 2008, 9, 10 recession, the world changed. It changed almost irreversibly, very, very quickly. People now demanded instantaneous service. The Amazon next day delivery was coming out of its shed. And I don't know about you, but it's a favourite go-to place for mine because I know it arrives really quickly. And that quantum change in speed of delivery, speed of excellent service was born out of the last recession. This one, it's all about social impact. Can you demonstrate what you do in the society around you to the satisfaction of your consumers, your employees, and your investors? If you can do that, you're on a good ticket to rise in the ranks of successful businesses. And so we start to think about, well, how can we do that? What do we do? And many companies, I'm sure out there, you're one of them, you give some money to a charity or a community cause, for example, or you might volunteer, you might even gift end-of-line stock, for example, or unused assets. Fantastic. How do you measure it? How do you convert that measurement into something we call verifiable measurement, which actually means it's not you tapping it into a spreadsheet, it's been verified by an external source. And then how do you actually publicize that to promote the reputation of your brand? And that's what Investors and Community does as a platform. We're an online blockchain platform. The blockchain bit means A, we're very strong and very scalable, but secondly, it means we record an immutable ledger of what goes through in terms of activity. So no more need for those spreadsheets and pulling them all together every so often. It's all there at the touch of a button, verified by an external platform, such as Investors and Community. We also offer the community groups free of charge access because from an ethical point of view, we think those people that need help and ask for help shouldn't be charged, either over the counter or in many cases under the counter, with charges that apply to all sorts of different transactions. So we make it utterly free for those who require help. And we ask the businesses to step up and make a small contribution, a nominal subscription, to be able to use the platform from the point of view of measuring, auditing, reporting, and ultimately to engage their staff on the platform to track all of the interaction between the two halves of society. And all that's well and good. What are you going to do with it? Well, obviously market it, show your customers, demonstrate to your shareholders. There are edicts coming down the line that says shortly you'll be asked to, the larger companies amongst you, will be asked to file an impact report as part of your GAAP accounting reports every year. Now, the smaller businesses amongst you might say, well, that doesn't apply to me, does it? Because I'm really quite small. It may not apply to you directly, but your supply chain ultimately will require you to demonstrate that particular activity and prove with a verifiable record that that is the truth of the matter. It's a little bit like the GDPR a few years ago. The little businesses said, well, we don't really care about that. It's not really for us. Nobody knows we exist anyway. And that's very true, but your suppliers, customers do, and the supply chain eventually will insist that you are compliant to GDPR standards, or we can't do business with you. Clean supply chains, where social impact reporting is concerned, will replicate the journey of the GDPR. There will be a requirement for larger businesses to demonstrate the impact reporting, social impact that they're making, and that will trickle into supply chains and supply chain analysis. Ultimately, the larger business having a clean supply chain puts a tick in the box of their social impact credentials. And so it falls to big businesses and small businesses to recognize the fact this is an unstoppable system that's about to happen. The reporting is required. The espousing of your values needs to be demonstrated. And this is what this system is all about. It's about you being able to take control and as efficiently as possible, engage with the communities, engage with your third-party stakeholders, and ensure that you have a continuous flow of data between the two to satisfy the reporting requirements, to draw in your consumers, your investors, and your stakeholders, and ensure that you're a business that's fit for the future. You can do nothing if you choose. You can sit there and watch the tsunami come rolling towards you. That's the tsunami of change that's going to happen anyway. You can sit there and say, well, I'm a small business, or I don't really care. I'll sit here and ride it out. Probably not a wise thing to do. Head for the high ground, take control, and start introducing ESG to your boardroom's agendas quickly. It's not going to wait very long. Don't forget, 1,000 years into 10 years, the pace of change is going to be very, very rapid indeed. And I'd urge all of you to consider where you are on that journey, and if you need any help, reach out. The companies who are going to be successful in this are going to be successfully sustainable in the future. It's an overused word, sustainable. What I mean is they can replicate their success because they'll have the support from the consumers, the employees, and the investors, and be able to move their business forwards. Fail to do it, I'm afraid you're staring oblivion in the face in the medium term. Thank you, Michael.